The entire globe, even as it trembles in passion with the birth of new nations and shrinks in the hand of a dispassionate science, is today the site of a momentous conflict. As each side attempts to prove to the world the superiority of its position, the conflict is fought with the words of diplomats.
I have here the policy statements of each of our services on the contest we're engaged in with the communists. The areas in white on this map represent the part of the world composed of ourselves and those who share our beliefs. The communists seek constantly to win an advantage in the minds of the people here and to separate us.
And to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
The black portion of the map is the communist-dominated part of the world controlled by the Soviet Union and the Chinese Communist regime. And of tremendous importance is that part of the world which is attached to neither camp, the uncommitted nations of the world, represented in gray on the map. For the most part, these nations are absorbed with their own problems. Either they are newly independent after years of domination by a foreign power, or they are still seeking independence. A strong tide of nationalism sweeps over this part of the world, and with it, a mistrust of anything they feel is associated with the old ways of colonialism. They are not committed to either side in the conflict. Our own policy toward them has been one strictly of watchful, non-intrusive friendship, giving help when help is asked for, but otherwise keeping hands off their internal affairs. The communists have been more direct. Their local party members have not hesitated to exploit to their own advantage the passions that smolder in these new states, and to identify themselves in the minds of the people there, whenever possible, with anti-colonialism, and us with its opposite. It is part of their worldwide technique.
Mutual fear had started the Cold War and kept it going. In October 1962, that mutual fear brought the world to the brink of war. Over 3 years, they'd watched the friendship between Cuba and the Soviet Union. how trade deals had led to arms deals. If Khrushchev supplied Castro with defensive weapons, guns, tanks, that was none of America's business. But what if, in return, Castro let Khrushchev use Cuba as a strategic base for offensive weapons to attack the USA?
This sudden, clandestine decision to station strategic weapons for the first time outside of Soviet soil, in violation of Soviet assurances, is a deliberately provocative and unjustified change in the status quo, which cannot be accepted by this country.
The article described how Kennedy had ordered a blockade of Cuba. 180 US Navy vessels surrounding the island. It described the plucky Cuban people watching the skies, digging in against American attack. Soviet propaganda showed capitalist America huffing and puffing with anger, desperate to remove this pocket of communism in their own backyard. If Pravda now spoke of further American aggression against Cuba, it seemed to make perfect sense.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
On the 27th of October, 5 days after Kennedy's speech, Khrushchev offered a deal. Telegrams were received at the White House. If the Americans scrapped the missile bases in Turkey, the Soviets would in turn withdraw from Cuba. Kennedy agreed to Khrushchev's terms, but he kept the Turkish deal a secret from the American people.
Mikhail Gorbachev's dreams of holding the Soviet Union together may have received a death blow today. The Union's 3 Slavic republics announced they are forming a separate Commonwealth of Independent States. Russia, the Ukraine, and Belarusia control much of the Soviet Union's economic power, enough to challenge the rapidly fading strength of Gorbachev's central government. Details from Moscow correspondent John Donvan.
The chief state TV channel was halfway through its evening news when it got the first details of the agreement signed in Minsk. Quoting from it, the anchorwoman announced, "The Soviet Union, as a subject of international and geopolitical reality, no longer exists." That decision, whether it sticks or not, it was made by 3 men. Boris Yeltsin, President of the Republic of Russia, elected President of the Ukraine, and Stanislav Shushkevich, leader of the Soviet Republic, where they all came together to meet. The territory of their Commonwealth, as they declared it, now accounts for 70% of the country's oil. open to other former republics to join, it will be headquartered not in Moscow. On a Ukrainian television, still arguing for a Moscow-based central government. Otherwise, he predicts anarchy, chaos.
Disaster of incredible proportions for the Soviet republics to go their own way.
But Yeltsin and know what they're doing. Already on how quickly to change to a free market system, for example, and on John Donovan, ABC News, Moscow.